World War I stands as one of humanity's most transformative conflicts, reshaping not just the global map, but fundamentally changing how wars would be fought for generations to come. The story begins in the early 1900s, when Europe was a powder keg of competing empires, secret alliances, and nationalist ambitions. The major powers had spent decades building complex networks of allegiances, the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy on one side, and the Triple Entente of Britain, France, and Russia on the other. These alliances were meant to maintain peace through mutual deterrence, but they would ultimately help transform a local conflict into a global catastrophe. The spark that ignited this powder keg came on June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. This single act set in motion a chain of events that would draw the world's major powers into conflict within weeks. Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany, issued an ultimatum to Serbia. When Serbia rejected parts of it, Austria-Hungary declared war. Russia, protecting its Slavic allies, mobilized its forces. Germany, honoring its alliance with Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia and France. When German forces invaded neutral Belgium to attack France, Britain was drawn into the conflict. What began as a regional dispute in the Balkans had become a continental war and soon a global one. The early months of the war were marked by rapid movement and traditional military tactics. The German army implemented the Schlieffen Plan, attempting to quickly defeat France before turning to face Russia. However, this initial phase of mobile warfare soon gave way to something unprecedented in military history: trench warfare. By late 1914, a system of trenches stretched from the North Sea to the Swiss border, creating the Western Front. The conditions in these trenches were horrific. Soldiers lived in mud-filled ditches, constantly exposed to artillery bombardment, disease, and the psychological trauma of seeing their comrades killed. The space between opposing trenches, known as no man's land, became a killing field where countless soldiers died in futile attempts to break through enemy lines. Major battles like Verdun and the Somme in 1916 would claim hundreds of thousands of lives while gaining minimal territory. But World War I wasn't just about the horror of trench warfare, it was also a laboratory for military innovation. The conflict saw the first widespread use of machine guns, which could fire hundreds of rounds per minute and made traditional infantry charges suicidal. The British introduced tanks in 1916 at the Battle of the Somme. While these early models were unreliable and slow, they pointed toward the future of mechanized warfare. The air war brought another dimension to combat. What began with reconnaissance flights evolved into aerial combat with specialized fighter aircraft and bomber planes. Legendary pilots like Germany's Red Baron became the war's first air aces. Meanwhile, beneath the waves, German U-boats conducted unrestricted submarine warfare, threatening to strangle Britain's maritime supply lines and eventually drawing the United States into the conflict. Perhaps the most terrifying innovation was chemical warfare. In 1915, the Germans first used chlorine gas at Waigal, beginning an era of chemical weapons that would horrify both soldiers and civilians. The development of gas masks and protective equipment became crucial for survival, leading to advances in chemical protection that would later benefit civilian applications. The war's impact extended far beyond the battlefield. It accelerated industrial production, medical advances, and communications technology. Field hospitals developed new techniques for treating wounds and preventing infection. The need for rapid communication led to improvements in radio technology and encryption methods. Even fashion was affected, as women entering the workforce adopted more practical clothing styles. The entry of the United States in 1917 proved decisive. American industrial might and fresh troops helped break the stalemate on the Western Front. By late 1918, the Central Powers began to collapse. Bulgaria surrendered in September, followed by the Ottoman Empire and Austria-Hungary. Germany, facing internal revolution and military defeat, signed an armistice on November 11, 1918. The war's aftermath reshaped the world map. The Treaty of Versailles dismantled empires and created new nations. Germany lost territory and was forced to pay massive reparations. The Ottoman Empire was partitioned, creating the modern Middle East with artificial boundaries that still cause conflicts today. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was dissolved into separate states, and Russia had already undergone a communist revolution. The human cost was staggering. About 9 million soldiers and 5 million civilians died. Millions more were wounded, including many who suffered devastating facial injuries that led to advances in plastic surgery. The war created a lost generation of young men and transformed social structures as women took on new roles in society and the workforce. World War I's technological legacy continued to influence warfare throughout the 20th century. The basic principles of mechanized warfare, aerial combat, and submarine operations established during the war would be refined and expanded in World War II. The development of chemical weapons led to international treaties banning their use, though the threat of chemical warfare remains today. The war's political consequences were equally lasting. The harsh terms of the Versailles Treaty contributed to the rise of Nazi Germany and the outbreak of World War II. The collapse of empires and the drawing of new national boundaries created tensions that continue to influence global politics. The war also marked the beginning of American emergence as a global superpower, a role that would define the 20th century. Perhaps most importantly, World War I changed how humanity viewed war itself. The romantic notions of military glory were shattered by the industrial-scale slaughter of modern warfare. The war's poetry, art, and literature reflected this new understanding, creating powerful anti-war messages that still resonate today. As we look back more than a century later, World War I remains a crucial lesson in how technological advancement, political alliances, and human ambition can combine with devastating consequences. Its innovations changed warfare forever. Its political aftermath shaped the modern world, and its human cost serves as a permanent reminder of war's true nature. Understanding World War I isn't just about studying history, it's about understanding the forces that continue to shape our world today.